I need the protection myself.
So today we will be witnessing a fireside chat on the latest book of Dr. Ram Madhav, which is The New World. Professor Ashutosh Sharma, he will be leading the discussion today. But before this, I would like to give you a brief intro and a promo video. Can we play the promo video, please? It's the 6th bestseller in India today, one of the largest selling books in the past 2 months in the non-fiction category. So congratulations, Dr. Ram Madhav ji, for this. Dr. Ram Madhav, as we always know, and I've been knowing him for over 10 years, and what I feel is, his work depicts very deep research and understanding, and he very seamlessly combines his intellectual depth, visionary thinking, and exceptional foresight. He's always ahead of the curve, and he's been a conversation starter, and he has a distinct knack to stir conversations, thoughts, and provoke deeper thinking. According to me, Dr. Madhav is the first author to have a definitive work on the emerging global world order. You hear leaders speaking about it, but it's just him who's been able to articulate that in a simplified manner. Sorry. So he's been the only one who's been able to articulate this in a simplified manner that relates to all journals. He takes us through a journey in 10 chapters which will define the new world, and then deep dive into each of those changes that we must be ready for, especially a country like Bharat. It starts right through the beginning of evolution from Neanderthals, exploration of the right.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting day of our program TRIPS. This session is really going to trip you off. And so we, very exciting indeed. We are so fortunate. It's incredible to have Dr. Ram Madhav with us today, talking about his latest book, which is The New World. So this is The New World is all about today and the future. And there are two things about the future which are so important. First thing, predictions are very hard, especially about the future, as somebody said. And future is not what it used to be. So about future is what this book is about, and this is what we'll talk a little bit, saying, look, what are the contours of future, why is it different, what's going to happen, 10 big changes which are going to happen. This is all in the book. Whether this book was to arrive now, so that we could distribute it among all the speakers and everything, it may come very soon. So while Dr. Madhav may not be here, but we will all get the book. You not get the signature. So I'm sorry about that. But anyway, you get the gist of this book in half an hour, and you will start talking about it now. So first thing that comes to mind, one of the big changes, Dr. Madhav, which is happening in the world, is that the old institutions are losing their importance. Whether it is United Nations, whether it is INF, all of that stuff that kind of glued people together, nations together, it's all falling apart at the seams. So, and then there are new players which are coming in there. These new players could be global corporates. I mean, a whole lot of stuff we do today, okay, the business that we do, it doesn't really contribute directly to our economy, for example. So there are new ways in which there is a rise of neo-colonial powers, if you would. There are non-state actors, there are big corporations, there are NGOs, there are all sorts of new entities, basically, which are not as well defined as the old world order. So this new world order, what does it imply for Bharat?
Professor Asoshi, first of all, thank you so much, you and Dr. Rupa Vasudevan and IIT Kanpur for hosting me, who is not typically a part of this group. By the way, I had some basic engineering qualification also, but subsequently I became a political science postgraduate and doctorate and all that was in political science. This group I always considered as a very important group when we talk about the new world. First and foremost, the issue that you raised about the institutions that have probably guided the world in the last few decades have basically come to this end. They are becoming redundant by the day. You don't have to look for any great evidence anywhere else. You can see it right in front of your own eyes. What is happening in Russia-Ukraine war, what's happening in Gaza, what happened in our own neighborhood. These institutions, global institutions, that were created to build an orderly world, are they really in a position to intervene and really make any significant contribution? We all know that they are unable to do anything now. The reality is that the world is changing. What we are witnessing today in different parts of the world is actually the symptom of the change. We are in an interregnum now. The old order is dissipating and new order is taking shape. We are in that interval period. All that we are seeing is not something that is a permanent feature of the world, but the phase of the transition. The transition looks very disorderly. It is disorderly. When you move your house from one place to another place, there will be some disorder. You are facing the disorder. But the definite thing is that we are entering into a new world. Problem with us, mostly in India, is that we are very romantic people. We believe that, where we are living happily, we should live there. But world doesn't believe in that. World wants to change. It is changing. And remember, changes are history, for that matter, never runs at the same pace. Sometimes it runs at an excruciatingly slow pace. When we were under the British rule. Great leaders like Ram. In fact, this one of the senior leaders mentioned in the Constituent Assembly. When he met Lajpat Rai in 1906 in London, Lajpat Rai told him that we are all fighting for our independence, but can we ever really imagine to be independent? This is such a big country, such a powerful country, the British government power is. Can we ever get free from them? That is the kind of feeling at that time, we can never get free. But then came 40, suddenly one 7-year time, we suddenly became independent. We became independent, we were not prepared for that. And they got divided. What I am saying is history runs in different paces. Today, the pace at which the history is progressing, changing, is somehow beyond our imagination. We have to quickly wake up. We have to understand that a new world is suddenly taking shape in front of us. Are we ready to be an important player in that world? If you are in Namibia, if you are a Congo, you may not ask this question. That are we ready to be an active partner in the new world? Because after all, I am a small country, I will just follow. Whatever happens, I will just follow. But can India remain like that? Or India with all its ambition, or India with all its great leadership, and all its romance. I am saying romance repeatedly, none of us believe in this hall that we are anything less than a Vishwaguru. That is the romantic belief about our own self, which is good. I am not saying it's bad. But are we ready to reach that position? Are we ready to play that role? I am afraid on that serious, non-romantic, very pragmatic discussion is needed. My book attempts at that discussion. Let us think pragmatic. Let us talk seriously about where is the world heading and where are we.
Sir, this is perfect setting up the stage. So where is the world heading? And what do we mean when we say that we are Vishwaguru? I mean that there is some amount of truth in that, but perhaps we have not understood and we are not able to convince other people as to what it means to be Vishwaguru, but more importantly, where do we focus? So there is the external world, which is technology. And there is also the internal world that deals with that technology and creates that world. So while we have been Vishwaguru in this world over here, which deals with the external world, we have not been able to deal as effectively with the external world. So what should be the response of India to these new challenges and opportunities?
Okay, Ashutosh, please don't take that Vishwaguru comment too seriously.
No.
I studied at a lighter note. We are Vishwaguru in terms of our spiritual wisdom and knowledge.
Yes, yes.
But the new world that we will be entering into very soon, I mean, we have already halfway into it. The old order in which we lived in the last 7 decades was essentially driven by powers that monopolized capital and trade. These were the two things that dominated the last world order. Countries that had capital, that had trade. But the new order will be little different in the sense that, of course, capital you need. You need to be economically very strong, but you need technology. It is capital and technology that will be the defining features of this new world. Now, in both these areas, India needs to now have a completely different outlook. From 3 trillion to 4 trillion, we grew. Or from 2 trillion to 4 trillion, we grew in the last 10 years. It's a great leap forward, great growth. But don't be satisfied with that. From 4 to 5, 5 to 6, we cannot think of those very ad hoc kind of growth rates. We need to aim at anything, not anything less than 10 trillion. If we really want to be important players in the world, because with 10 trillion also, given India's population, our per capita will be around $6,500. And that will still keep us around maybe somewhere between 50 to 100 rank. We are today with 4 trillion, world's 4th or 5th largest economy, but in terms of per capita GDP, we are 137 because we have a population of 1.46 billion. So we need to first of all aim very high about our economy. The only way for India to reach that economic level is through the route of deep tech. Why I am insisting on deep tech is, from 2 to 4, how we came was through our great emphasis, our great efforts in digital technologies. But they are mid-tech or at the most high-tech. Mid-tech, we are masters. High-tech, we are okay, but our high-tech is still 60% import dependent. You can't make machines. You can't make equipment. You have the ability to produce a high-tech product, but the equipment needed to produce that product has to come from Austria, somewhere else, China, somewhere else. Your raw material has to come from somewhere else. So in high-tech area, we have done good progress, but still 60% of our dependencies are imports.
Hello, can you hear me?
Now the world from high-tech has moved to what experts call as Web 4 deep tech. This deep tech area is much more advanced, and you are all engineers, I don't want to tell you what it is. Whether it is semiconductors, whether it is quantum, whether it is genetic technologies today, the way they are progressing. In the economic area, whether it is crypto or aerospace and defense, the way they are changing, they are completely transforming. Today we are placing orders for new defense aircraft, but the world is moving towards UAVs. You don't need aircraft. Our aircraft could not cross our border because all over there were swarms of UAVs coming. So what will happen to your aircraft? You have 200 aircraft, but the other side has 500 drones. So you are entering into that kind of a new world in aerospace and defense. Space is another area, outer space is another area. So it's a totally fascinating kind of world we are entering. As Rupaji mentioned in the initial introduction, we are entering into an era of meta-humans. Chinese robotic companies have today progressed so much that most of us cannot do Surya Namaskar properly because our stomachs come in the way. But the robots can do that. They can run faster than us, they can climb steps, they can do many things. They are practically humans. With AI going into AGI, and from there to artificial super intelligence, they will be much more intelligent and much more sensitive We will be having emotions also. That's the kind of world. Where are we? Have we really given any thought to where we stand in that deep tech area? I am worried that we are still not doing in that area. I think India has to now seriously turn its attention to it. That's why I insist that don't think, because youngsters are sitting here, don't think in terms of just following the curve, catching up with the rest of the world. Catching up, you can never do, I tell you. You know, you bring metro to Kanpur, you bring metro to Lucknow, but metro first ran in Germany in 1936. You are getting it after 90 years. Never try to catch up. You can never do that. You can always be following these curves. How do you go ahead of the curve? How do you do things that the world can about? Yeah, India did it. Only one area we did it, fintech, but no other area. You have to think very seriously. I can add a few more things during conversation.
No, that's certainly fantastic that we need to be disruptive now. We need to think about deep tech. You talk about 10 big changes in your book. And those 10 big changes, what are more appropriate changes for India that one should be focusing on? And of course, I see now it's very nice to see all my colleagues are there, PhD students, all the deep minds here. So deep tech is certainly a good thing to talk about. And so we enlighten people here about the 10 big changes that you will start.
So, a few things are very well known, like the gradual decline of the West. When I say decline, it doesn't mean West will disappear. It will be there, a prominent force, but its influence is already declining, it will further decline. Trump got his best lesson in Alaska last week, when he thought that he will resolve Ukraine crisis in Alaska. He realized that it's no longer that kind of a word where you can just dictate to Putin or somebody that he will fall in line. Things are changing. Rise of China is a very important aspect in this century. It's going to be there. It's going to be a very defining thing in the shaping of the new world. Then there are middle powers which are rising. India is rising, but India is not alone. When we had that small fight with Pakistan for 4 days, we suddenly started talking about a new country that is Turkey. We never used to talk about Turkey in the past. Why? The reason is today Turkey also rose as a middle power. There are countries, we may not like it, but it is the reality. There is a world which has lots of middle powers, which have influence regionally, which have influence because of their technology. What is Turkey's greatest strength? Its advances in certain areas of military technology. Like for example, its advances in drone technology is amazing. That one area catapults it into one of the middle powers. So there will be a different kind of criteria for countries to rise. We are getting into that. We are seeing the decline of multilateral institutions. We have to shed this romance. Let me tell you, when United Nations was created in 1945 to build a world order, that was not the only institution. 20 years before, there was a League of Nations created for the same purpose. It was realized that League of Nations was not serving its purpose. United Nations was created because there were statesmen at that time. There was one Roosevelt, there was one Churchill. They got together and decided through Atlantic Charter that we need a new world running institution. We need a new multilateral mechanism. They built United Nations. Why do we assume that it should be permanent? But today we are so lazy, we don't have statesmen in the world, so we are afraid that if the United Nations system collapses, what will happen? What will happen? Build another one. That kind of a rigor is needed in the world. I talked about technology. I also mentioned in my book about heteropolarity. Today, I talked about multiple force rising, but they are states, but non-state actors. How influential they are today. When Ukraine was attacked by Russia, that fateful day, if you all remember, 22/02/2022, it was the date on which Russia attacked Ukraine. On that day, Russia thought it would be a cakewalk because Russia used its malware to corrupt the ground stations of Ukrainian satellites. Communication system has collapsed. Without communication, you can't do anything. So Russia thought, I will just take over. Because army cannot function, government cannot function without communication technology. What the foreign minister of Ukraine did was to use a VPN to reach out not to Biden, not to Modi, but to Elon Musk. Who is Elon Musk? He asked Elon Musk, you want to take people to Mars, here is Russia, which is taking over my country, can you help me? Musk replied within 1 hour, yes, I am giving you 500 Starlink Garudas by this evening, use them, restore your communication, fight the war. Musk restored the communication systems of Ukraine. Ukraine stood for 3 years fighting the mighty strength of Russia. Why I am saying this is what is heteropolar world looking like. I was in Hungary. The Prime Minister of Hungary was the keynote speaker where one of the panels I was also speaking. He started his speech by saying, my country, Hungary, is facing a very big threat. I thought he will talk about Europe, or he will talk about Russia, he will talk about some other country. He said the threat is coming from George Soros. So who is George Soros? Does he have an army? Does he have a country? Is the Prime Minister? No, he is an investor. He has a lot of money. An investor can be a threat to sovereign countries today. That is the heteropolar world I am talking about. So we are entering into a different kind of world. These features, from there to new types of war, to new types of environmental challenges, do we realize that around us, not less than 35 billion people will be displaced because of environmental issues in all our island oceans, in all our surroundings. Some will be domestically displaced, some will be externally displaced. Now we know one country sending people into our country illegally, they are jumping up and down. Imagine that 10 million, 15 million people are displaced around us, they will go somewhere. They may come to India, they may come to somewhere. Demographic challenges will further increase. Societal challenges will increase. I gave an example of wokeism. You know, in Europe, these days, in many schools, when you take your children to admit them in LKG, UKG, or class 1, you have to fill up a form. One column you are not allowed to fill up as parents, and that column is gender. You cannot specify the gender of your child, because the school says that will be decided by the child when he or she turns 14. You may think, what is this craziness? Gender is decided by doctor when you are born. But they say, no, gender is, sex is decided, not gender. Gender one can decide. I was reading in Tokyo, one Canadian lady was crawling on the road. Police stopped. She said, you can't stop me. I consider myself a snake. Your action. No, these are the kinds of things that are happening. I mean, something which is a fiction for us 10 years ago, 5 years ago, is becoming a reality. That kind of a world we are entering. But most critical for this group is technology, technology, and technology. Let me say, I was reading that expression of your conference title. It is innovation, it's research, it's all that. So, largely we are aggregators, not innovators. We aggregate ideas. I'm not saying imitators, you may feel bad. But that's the reality. Most of our innovations are aggregations, are imitations. We don't do original research. We don't have such data resources. So India has to now seriously introspect. Our institutions have to introspect. Do you know what is our R&D spending? 0.66% of our GDP. You know how much China spends? 2.6% of its GDP. And US spends 4.5% of its GDP. US figures vary. US claims 8%, but I am giving out which is 4.5%. But you may say, we are 0.6, we are 2.6, only 5 times. No, we are 0.6% of our GDP. They are 2.6% of their GDP. Now they are 25 times more investment they are made. I will give you a hard figure. India spent $15 billion on its R&D. Total R&D is $15 billion. And China spends $260 billion, US spends $800 billion, close to $1 trillion. Look at the gap. Where are spending? And out of this spending also, government, समाज वगैरह influence करते हैं तो government spend करता है. No private. Entire private spending out of the 15 billion is about 4 billion. Out of 4 billion, 3.5 billion is by Tata automobiles. Tata spends 3.5 billion out of 4 billion of our private R&D. How do you grow? How do you master technologies? You don't spend. So it's a very serious situation. That's why Prime Minister is repeatedly saying, the Prime Minister is devoted his entire speech this time, majority of the speech from the Lal Kala this time to deep tech. He said these are the areas where we have to master. That is true Atmanirbharta. You completely dependent for all these technologies on other countries and say we are Atmanirbhar and Vishwaguru. It won't happen that way. Sorry.
Well, it's certainly a wake-up call, and this is very well put. It's a wake-up call. See, our challenges are clear and present. We have demographic dividend. All younger people sitting there. Your age is 28.623 years, right? And so there's the median age of the country. And there's a window of opportunity which is there because of our younger population, hungry population. Hungry, I mean, in terms of achieving stuff. But this window of opportunity would be open only for 25 more years before the society starts paying and we got constraints. Now, let's look at the nature of these constraints, which are in your book as well. These are overarching constraints that are setting up now, and they are global constraints. One is the rise of intelligent machines, which is going to impact every aspect of our life and is going to displace people, wholesale, retail, everything. The second challenge, of course, sustainable development, including climate change. Now, this is very interesting. You said the old world order is crumbling. No doubt about it. There's nobody in control over there. We need to find our own master. We need to find our own Soros and everybody else. That as an aside. But since there is nobody in control, not UN, not nobody, but the challenges we have are global. So somebody needs to be in control. We are not going to solve the problem of climate change as a nation, as a society. We are not going to be able to stop the shadows of AI, for example, only on the local level. Yeah, that's one of the challenges. Nobody. She's about the challenge of space and time. In fact, it's very interesting you said that there's some person crawling like a snake. I know a lot of snakes who walk on 2 feet. So it works both ways. Right? But the thing is also obviously imitate each other. So I think that we would try to conclude. We will say, look, what kind of new order would be required in order to deal with global challenges? And since old world order is not working, what is the viable mechanisms and structures and processes that would allow us as a planet to actually deal with challenges, in addition to we dealing with these challenges as a society, as a nation?
I would say in preparing the country to face these challenges, the community sitting here, the fraternity sitting here, I have a couple of suggestions to make. Please kindly ponder over. Right? Firstly, at the policy level, we have to end one important distinction that exists in our country between military and civil research. We have to first of all close it. Complete fusion you have to create. Kanpur IIT doing any frontier research should have a lieutenant general, a colonel sitting in your laboratory. He should be a part of your system, because there is no such thing in future called civilian technology and security defense related technology. They are today completely interlinked with each other, completely fused. So you have to create that major fusion between military and defense. You know the sad part of it. We have semiconductor mission. We have quantum mission. Now we have Anusandhan R&D mission. None of these have any military representative. The real first user for you is the defense. We don't have it. Create that complete fusion. We have, because don't look at military as a kind of a force that is going to kill people. No, it's now about much bigger area, much bigger space. Your communications have to be protected. Your sea cables under the sea cables have to be protected. It's going to be a totally different kind of challenge that you will face. Complete fusion you create. That is what made countries like US and China successful in their tech endeavors. That's the first thing I would say in terms of policy, where professors and senior government leaders like you can probably do. Second and most important as far as the exchange is concerned is quality of R&D in India. We need to really take it to our next level. Our R&D is very poor, our research is very poor, our so-called, research papers that we submit, so-called patents that we apply for are of very low quality. We need to change that whole system. We need to bring in more of private investments into our research area in order for our students to do better research. Research in better areas, research in areas that are ahead of the curve, not the ones that are imitations or small additions. It has to be, I'm not saying every student will do that, but 1 out of 10 should be such a researcher whose paper is internationally acclaimed. Do you know that out of the 65,000-70,000 research papers or so we publish in a given year, are less than 100,000? Not even 10% are cited. They are not citable. These are the kind of challenges that the academic community has to think. Where is that original research happening? Where is that real research? Where is the student spending 2 years, 3 years on one paper requires 6 to 8 months a minimum. 1 year it requires. Is he ready to spend that? Or is churning out 4 papers in a year? These are some of the areas where the academic community has to come down very strong, and especially the premier institutions. I know a lot of constraints. I saw one day, one of the IITs, one professor, one very director told me that for 20 years they struggled to get a grant for AI, and finally they secured how much? 600 crores. And he said 270 crores will go for my salaries and establishment costs. With 300 crores, what AI research can happen? It cannot happen, but that's how the system is also working. So we have to find new ways.
Saying that certainly more funding for research is needed, and we also pass on the message to scientists that delivery is equally important. So on both sides, so money is coming in, that should be converted to knowledge, knowledge converted back to money, and so they will try and we are so thankful for you to be here and talk about very substantial things which are going to impact our future in a big way. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Professor Sharma.